about conscious parenting before it became a modern term. So conscious parenting, I don't know if you know about it, it's when they brought like the Eastern and Western philosophies together and fused it and navigated and what it is about as a parent. When a child triggers you, you don't respond, you actually look at yourself and reflect upon how is the child triggered at me and how do I work on who I am. And I suspect, because of from when you went through your journey, which I would love for you to share, is that you've spent many years working on yourself to become a better mother. Is that right?
I read what you wrote and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got a tall tree to live up to, because you wrote all this stuff. And even when you say about triggering, I can't say we'll cover all that. I can't say in the beginning stages I was like a model parent, but really I would say that my daughter is my greatest work, if you can call it that. She's really my life's work. And I always remember Tony Robbins saying that our children know exactly which buttons to push because they installed them. They know exactly. I mean, that sounds like a strange concept, but if you really think about it, from from birth, they know exactly what's going to move you, trigger you. And so when they want to get a response, they know exactly which buttons to push. So my daughter's been my life's work. She would hate to hear that, I'm sure. It sounds very egotistical, but it's really what's pushed me to be a better human being. And I'm even thinking about, years ago when I was living in India, which we might talk about, one of the processes that I engaged in was because I always felt I didn't have good role models and I didn't have, parents who were able to talk to me and who didn't give me the kind of information I needed. And so I engaged in all sorts of stuff so that I would actually have something better to deliver to my daughter.
Wow. And that's foresight, because I even know, how old is your daughter, out of curiosity?
She's, let me have to think about that. I think she just turned 38, maybe. Yeah, 38.
So she's the same age as me. And
oh, right.
And what I find profound is that you thought of that, and my mum was and that's no judgment of my mum, but it was the whole agenda of society it was a certain way the child had to, they didn't think about, how, I don't know how to word it, like you just beautifully put it, what Tony Robbins said, is that, that they're there and that they know which buttons to push, whereas you looked about yourself, how about me? Where do I need to grow? Whereas the generation of my mum and around them, it was always the child's fault. And even in this modern day, I hear psychiatrists talk about the fact that parents coming in and saying, you need to fix my child. You need to fix my child, rather than the fact that we need to fix ourselves.
Well, I can't say that at the beginning of my journey was a conscious desire. I suppose it was a conscious desire to be a better parent, because I think we always want to give our kids what we didn't have ourselves.
Of course.
And so I lived in quite a rigid environment. My parents were not really capable of demonstrating love in the way that most kids want. It's like I was in boarding school. My dad would send £5, which was, a fair bit of money in those days, to go and have a weekend away with a friend. So a friend would invite me to their house for the weekend and my dad would send £5. But what you really wanted was your parents to come down for the weekend and hug you and hold you. And so I didn't really grow up with any of that. And it was important to me to show my daughter love. As I'm saying that, I'm going, she would probably listen to this and say she probably didn't get enough of that either. But I really wanted to have an opportunity to have more freedom in her life. And I certainly did not have freedom. My dad would always say, what we're giving you is the cherry on the cake. But somewhere I just felt so restricted. And, I wasn't a boisterous child because I didn't have the chance to be a boisterous child. But that's why sort of in my teens, I just rebelled completely. And you'll hear many people of my generation say the same thing. We just had to, I'm like a child of the 60s and 70s and Woodstock and the Isle of Wight and, all of the revolution going on in London. I mean, the fashion revolution and the music revolution and the drug revolution. So kids like me, we just went bam, and, I kind of rejected all of the stuff I'd been brought up with. And it's only now that I have to come round, or, you know, I would say the last, yeah, through my journey through therapy and working on myself, have I been able to appreciate the beauty and the assets that my parents gave me. And before you answer that, I'll just tell you one thing. I did a workshop one time where they asked you to make a list of all of the things that you really felt you hated about what your parents had given you. My list was like this. And then the next part of the process was to look at the beautiful things you'd inherited from them. And I literally, at the time, could not find a single thing to write on my list, because I was still in so much resentment and rebellion and pain. And, you know, you got to understand that life then was not about just going down the road and getting some self-help book, or, you know, plugging into the internet and doing a, you know, heal your inner child workshop. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it was all based on, I just want to give my daughter the things that I felt was lacking in my life. And predominantly it was the freedom to be who she is, irrespective of what I think she ought to be.
And it's really fascinating, because this is something we've spoken about before, that you knew that when your daughter came into the world, that she was here to live life on the way she wanted to live life, rather than the way that you thought that she needed to be that way. And I know, I have a young child, but I know a lot of parents struggle with their child being different to them. So if they're, you know, they're passionate about football, but their children don't even like sport at all. Or if they're an artist and then their child turns out to be a mathematician, you know, but you know with your daughter that she had her own journey, and that your job was to help her to follow her heart rather than your own.
I mean, I've tried to do that, and certainly I remember having a conversation with her dad one time. You know, my daughter's only desire, after the wayward life that we've led her through and the buckets of freedom she's had, all she's really ever wanted to do was to settle down, be married, have kids. Now that has its own kind of, you know, that's its own challenge for her. But I remember with my ex-husband, you know, when that seemed to be apparent, saying, but, you know, what if she had 6 children and she turned out to be the very, very best mother that she could possibly be, and that is her life's journey? Who are we to, you know, to challenge that? Everybody has their path. And, you know, I adore her for the things that she's achieved in her life. And, you know, last week we had the most terrible clash, or the week before last, because I'm not living up to her expectations of what a grandparent should do. But underlying it all, even though she says some terrible things to me sometimes, I just got to take it in and go, you know, that's not coming from, it's coming from her stress, it's coming from her wound, it's coming from her pain. It's not really what she feels. And seeing that that's one of those trigger points, and just going, okay, you know, I just got to breathe it in and just love her through it. And that is really freaking hard sometimes.
It would be.
Yeah, whenever I read a post from somebody today, not about kids, but they were saying something like, you know, the nature of love is being able to love someone when you really want to sock them in the teeth, you know. And don't your kids make you want to do that? You know, it doesn't change. She's nearly 40, but she's, you know, it's still the same, and she's still my baby.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because last night Zion hasn't been too well, and I was covered in vomit all over me, because he didn't go well with something. He seems okay today, and I was like, just in it. But if it was my husband had done it to me, I would have gone crazy. But you, just like you're saying, he was vomiting physical, but I suspect one day in the very future he'll be vomiting words at me through his pain. And like you're just saying, I've just got to be in that place and hold it and hold the space, and really just allow them to do. Because I've also learned too, and I wasn't aware of this, is if your child, like one of my friends told me, her child gets these beautiful reports about how amazing he is at school, and then he comes home and he's a real terror, like an absolute terror, like a completely different kid, yin and yang. And a therapist actually turned around and said, you know what, you should be really proud of the fact that your son feels safe and secure to show all facets of himself. It's when you get really worried and concerned that there isn't a strong relationship between the two that he can show his shadow and his light. And I was like, wow. And that's what I hear that you're saying here too, is that your daughter can have that, but she feels safe enough to express her emotions and how she feels. And that's really important for any child. It doesn't matter if they're only young and they've come from the womb, because they cry, you've got to hold them and embrace them, or even to the age of, like I said, I'm the same age as your daughter. And there's days I just want to go home and I want my mum's arms around me and I just want to tell her she loves me and everything's going to be all right. Because to me, my mum is the safest place in the world. Like she was there from the moment I was born, and she's still there to the day, unfortunately, one of us passed away. It's just, and it's like you said, I can understand completely why you said that your daughter is your greatest work. Like, it's because, one, you created her too, but you just sat in that place of allowing things to come through. And that's something, because you talked about before, you as a parent want to give your children everything that they haven't been able, your parents were unable to give you in that experience. And that's what I feel like for myself. I see, oh, this is where I want to go with this and that with me, because where I was lacking in my life. And it's really important that I give him what I didn't have. But therefore, I suspect when he goes on to having children himself, he's going to say, well, I'm going to bring this and that because my mum was incapable of doing that, because we're not perfect. We as mothers are just human.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting things is I'm getting to do it a second time round now because I have grandsons.
Yes.
And so I can kind of divorce myself from all of that daily mothering, thank God, because I just spent like 3 days there and I have a new appreciation for, having to get up every day and do it again. I can go home. So I don't have to do all that, but also to put into practice some of the things I've learned since I was a parent. As in, Luca, when he's having a tanty, my daughter tends to get like angry because she's just up to here with it all. And she just, it's like there's a point where it's like somebody rips the Band-Aid off and she just flips out. Whereas, I can get down. I learned this thing and get down on your knees and talk to him and hold him and I just kind of put that into practice last week. So different, so different. I mean, I'm on a journey with my grandkids. It's just the same as if they were my kids in a way. And, like I say, she doesn't think I'm the perfect grandparent because I've never been one of those people to wrap my whole life around family in a way. I'm kind of selfish and my path has been the most important thing, but I feel like I bring my path to my parenting. So as a grandparent, and I guess as a parent, I'm trying to bring awareness to what I do, and I'm trying to steer my kids in a way that's going to help them be the best version of themselves. And I guess we all want to do that, but I try and do it in a way, that is non-reactive. Yeah, and sometimes that ain't freaking easy. You just, what do you do when you've just been vomited all over and you were planning on going out and you've just got your clothes on and then you've got to mop up sick? And, parenting is not an easy job. And I don't think that people really, like for instance, my daughter had one child and it was great. Luca is a full-on kid. He's not like, the easy baby, you put him down, goes to sleep. He's now 3. But number 2 has come along and 1 + 1 = 7. 1 + 1 does not equal, we've got 2 kids. And she's going, God, if I'd known it was going to be like this, I would have held off a bit. Number 2 came along kind of a bit quicker than expected. But I have the utmost respect for anybody who can deal with that stuff. And I'm glad I stopped at 1. One was quite enough for me. So.
It's funny because that's the subject we navigate, my husband and I, all the time. And I've talked about it before. My husband thinks I'll go batshit crazy. That's the way he puts it. If I have a second child, because, and this is something I find, and I'm glad that you brought it up. And this is why I do these. It's the importance of it is for parents, particularly because I'm a mum, so I can identify with them. About you were talking about how you put the importance on your own journey before family and everything else. And that's why I get agitated with my situation with my son, because I have ambitions and goals and dreams I want to do. And for me, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it wasn't my dream or ambition to have a child and be a parent. There's people out there that want to be parents. For me, it was something. I worked with a counselor, and she actually said, look, let's talk about you having kids. And I was like, no way. I was swearing and cursing at her. But what I came to the understanding that the things that I run away from, I have to embrace, because that's where my greatest lessons, my greatest growth come from. And hence the reason why I ended up having Xeon. But then I found that people would like say to me, I want more. I want more from my life. And people go, shouldn't you be just happy that you're just a mum? Shouldn't you be just happy this is the way it is? And I'm like, but you know what? My husband gets to be a fucking parent and have a career at the same time. But because, that I'm a woman, I'm meant to just settle for one or the other. And I know with my mum, she doesn't say it out loud, but I feel it. And sometimes she'll let it go. She has regrets that she didn't go off and do what she wanted to do. Like there's a lot of things that she could have wished she could have done a lot more with her life than what she has. And I think it's really important, we as women and as mothers show our children that you've got to put you first and go and get your dreams, because we go out and achieve what we want to do, it makes it possible for our children to go out and do it too, be fearless in obtaining what they want to achieve. Yeah? But and you're doing it so beautifully, yeah.
But it's finding the balance, And so on Sunday last week, I went off to an event in Brisbane because I'm up on the Sunshine Coast, and I had a really great day, and I stayed the night with a friend, and I was driving home, and I'm like, okay. Obviously, people might know that you and I are in a similar business, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get on. I have some stuff I wanted to do. And then I get my daughter on the phone on the way up. She's completely beside herself. She's in tears. One kid's sick. She's also sick. Doesn't know what to do. Husband is a fly in, fly out. And I'm like, oh, crap. This is the last thing I wanted to do, but I'm a parent. And she spat the dummy on me the week before because I wasn't doing enough. I'm like, okay, don't want to do this. Have to go and help her because she's my kid. And everything inside of me screaming and going, I don't want to do this. I had other plans. I need to.
Yes.
But it really, it's about values and priorities. When you talk about, some mothers, somebody might be listening to this later who is desperately trying to have a child and wondering how we can talk about this so matter-of-factly. Everybody's experience is completely unique, and I probably wouldn't wish my experience on people today. But you got to understand, my daughter was born in the 80s, like you.
Yes.
Times were super different, and I was on a spiritual quest to just, what we're all doing in our business in a way right now on the personal development side is we're stripping away all the layers that we've taken on that just don't belong to us. All the shoulds, all the needs, all the have-tos, all the behaviors, all the beliefs that just stopped me from experiencing the freedom that I tried to give my daughter.
Yeah.
So, times are very different today. So I wouldn't say that, anyone listening to this has to navigate their own path. And if they're having challenges with it, then they should talk to somebody. I mean, I'm totally happy to talk to anybody, and I've been coaching for a long time. And I think one of the things, going back to something you said a minute ago, is that I used to try and fix my daughter. Yeah. She'd come to me with things that she needed just to offload, and I would try and offer her solutions all the time. So I'd like, oh God, I can't listen to her complaining. I can't listen to her bitching. So I'd have my kind of coach's hat on, and I'd be always offering solutions instead of realizing that women just need to offload and be heard. And once we've dumped our shit, we're like, okay, I feel so much better now. And the challenge as a parent is to not take on their shit.
Yeah.
Is to listen and go, okay, like the other day when she spat the dummy, she said, and I still stand by what I said. I'm like, okay. Yeah, you stand by what you said, but it's not mine. It's not, I don't have to take this on. I can look at it and go, okay, how can I improve, or where do I think I could do better in this relationship? But I don't have to take on all the crap that comes my way.
Yeah, and that's really important. That's everybody in life, like not even what the children are doing. People want to upload, and I found, like, even when I used to work in hospitality, something would happen that would make the straw on the camel's back break, and then they would go crazy at you for something that was remotely not even connected to it. And it was because of this upload of things, and people just want to offload. They just want, but it's like you said, well, how can I utilize this to improve, and not taking it as a personal reflection.
But that also comes back to they know exactly which buttons to push.
Yes.
So, she goes into my guilt button. I was a bad parent. I didn't do enough. I wasn't there enough. I wasn't present enough. I went off on my own journey. I pulled you along with me. All of that stuff is there when she goes, But so it doesn't get any easier, honestly. It doesn't. I mean, I don't want to put anybody off.
It just what I've been told, it just transforms to something different. Do you like each age group it transforms in?
Yeah, because they become better. They become more skilled, and their journey through life changes. But you just have to steer them through the journey with the best you know how, and try and give them the benefit of your experience and how you would have acted in a similar situation when they have a challenge. But then you just got to leave it up to them. You have to hope that you instilled in them enough common sense and enough intelligence to be able to navigate their own path with you kind of, leading from behind in a way. You just got to let them go. I mean, I still hold my daughter's hand to cross the road sometimes. She's like, oh, Mum, maybe not now because, there's like 3 others, there's 2 others tagging along. But, she's still your baby, or they're still your babies.
And it's interesting you talk about that how were you able to let go of her hand, even when she was younger, to go off and do what she needed to do and let her have those like bruises and bumps that she had to have, those life lessons, rather than the term they say. And I said this to you once, you said, oh, I'm a helicopter grandma. Yeah, but with your kid, with your child, your daughter, you enabled her to embrace life rather than stop her from doing the things, even though you're going to hurt her.
I mean, I think it's different with a girl. I'm a helicopter grandparent with the boys because, they're a bit more rough and tumble. So, we go to the playground and I'm like, and if you take your eyes off them for a second, one's gone this way and the other's gone that way. And, that's where I'm a helicopter. But with my daughter, she wasn't quite so kind of adventurous. And in a way, I delegated my parenthood to other people. So I sent her to a school that was very much a new age school. And, she did a lot of her exploring, her horse riding and the things that I would consider dangerous, in another environment. But, then she was a teenie and kind of, I think it's interesting. My mum didn't know all the stuff you could get up to as a teenager. So she just lived in an ignorance bubble. Yes. I know exactly, the stuff that a teenager can get into. Yeah. But I just tried to steer her with the benefit of my experience, having been through a lot of that stuff together.
Can we go back to where you spoke earlier? It was about, it's amazing. I've done something similar about how you wrote down all the things that, listed down all the resentments you had towards your parents. And you said at the time you couldn't find the benefits to your parents' parenting. I suspect now in this day and age, you have a lot of more love.
It wasn't so much towards their parenting, but just their good qualities that I'd inherited. So I could see all the shit I'd inherited and the things which I thought came from them. But all the great qualities, I just thought they were an accident of birth. I thought they were like bestowed upon me by God, and it hadn't, genetically flowed through my veins from my parents. And I suspect we might be about to run out of time on your Zoom here. I'm not sure how much longer we've got going, but I'd certainly like to share something that happened the other day, which just completely blew my freaking mind.
Go for it.
My mother was a refugee from Eastern Europe, and she came to England, because that's where I'm from, in the very late 40s, I would suspect, and got a job as a housekeeper, and she had family in the UK, so she arrived as a refugee. And I know bits about her history. And she was in a place called the Sudetenland, which was sort of Czechoslovakia, German-speaking Czechoslovakia. It was one of those frontiers that went back and forth. And my cousin Mike sent me an email the other day, where he just kind of dropped in. He's sort of doing a bit of research on the family, and he dropped in that my mother had actually had another child prior to coming to the UK. And there's a bit that I won't mention, but that this child, because they were so ashamed, I guess, that she was pregnant and stuff, she had been kind of, secreted into the house. And when she was birthing, they hadn't called a midwife properly. And the child had obviously been a bad birth of some sort. Maybe they tried to pull the child out, but he was damaged when he was born, and he died a few days later. And I mean, I'm like 65. I knew nothing of this. And my cousin just kind of dropped this into an email. I'm like, did he think I knew this? And there's this amazing series on TV right now called Every Family Has a Secret, which I've been watching, and which has obviously triggered some stuff, but it makes me really kind of go back into my mum's history some more, because, like I said, one of the processes that I did was really primal forgiveness and really deconditioning to come to, less anger and resentment about my upbringing. And that's just another piece to it now, to really understand the wounds that my mum never ever spoke of, and why she was like she was. I mean, she was great, but I don't think either of my parents were educated with the capacity to love, because they'd never really been loved, and they had their own traumas. And that brings me to why it was so important for me to heal my own traumas, not having been beaten up by my family, but just so many of us come feeling like we were never properly loved. And when you come into any relationship, any marriage, any parenting, and you haven't learned to love yourself and heal those wounds, you're just going to pass it down from generation to generation. And I just went, excuse me swearing, what the fuck? This is where it stops. Yeah. It stops with me.
Yeah. That's a good way to end it. And it's true. I find that's with myself on my journey of fixing who I am. No, I'm not passing on generational trauma anymore. It's going to stop at me, and it can, and it will, and it is. And it's really about, like you're saying right now, I realized when my son has a tantrum, I'll be like your daughter, wanting to flip and go off. And then I have to go to myself, I've got that ability, we all do, to stop and reflect and go, am I going to retaliate? Or am I going to accept that my son is only 21 months old, so he's only got a 20-month-old brain, so he doesn't know how to react in this moment and doesn't know how to process it. And when I look at that and go, and then I know I'm triggered, I go, you're triggered, but I don't have time to look at it on it. I look at it later. I embrace him, like you said. I love him and hug him. And then later on, I go back and go to heal that wound. And it's always connected to something with my mum or my dad where, they were busy doing stuff and incapable of showing me the love in that moment because they were too busy keeping up with life. And it wasn't even my son that triggered me, but I could have had the angry response and kept that generational thing going on, because I know my parents have learned that from their parents. It's just their upbringings, what they knew before. We all just copy and replicate. And it's like you said, we can make the choice. Yes, are we going, yes, I'm going to teach them this, or no more, it stops at me. And that's empowering. Thank you, Sandhan. I really want to say thank you, because it really is empowering for us to hear that we have that choice of whether or not you want to pass it on.
And every minute of every day is about consciousness. It's about, will I react or will I respond? And in everything that we do, whether we're going to stick the finger at somebody who cuts us off in traffic, or, shout at somebody, or, it's like things that trigger us. What do? You're like, okay.
And also too, when we talk about that, is energetically, I didn't realize the energy that I'm sitting in is what I'm getting out in the world. And I always think, why is it coming at me like this? But if I'm getting cursing people in the car as I'm driving along and annoyed at them and sticking my fingers up, of course I'm going to have an accident 2 minutes later, or something's going to be slammed back at me, because I'm just, that anger and aggression just come back at you full force.
Next time we chat, we'll talk about Ho'oponopono, which is one of the greatest things I've learned. We ain't got time to go into that today. So
All right. Well, I'll let you go. But on another note, if people want to find you, they're quite welcome to follow you. I'll ask to be your friends on Facebook to find you. I've got
and it's good if they send a message so that I know where they've come from. Just say, hey, I watched your interview, or just in the chat where you put it, just just tag me in there, and I'm super happy to talk to anybody.
And if there's some people a bit scared about adding you, they can just follow you, which is a great thing too. They can follow you.
Just send me a message and reach out. I don't bite.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the great thing about Sandhan, I didn't know who she was until the educational platform we're both a part of. Like that, you and I reached out and made this call for people who wanted to share their stories. And thank you so much for coming and sharing.
And I want to honour you, Amberlee, for really stalking me, and not just saying, no, but in the best sense of the word. I can see everything that you read about me, watched my, who am I and what am I here for, and that you really took the time to delve into my backstory before we did this interview. And I really honour you for doing that and taking the time. So.
Well, next time it's Honopono and you in India. I want to.
Oh, all right. I love that bit. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And you go enjoy your day.
I'm going to go and spend it with my grandies.
I love it.
All right.
Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.